Hey, it's Kristin Donnelly, co-host of Everything Cookbooks. If Write a Cookbook tops your list of goals for 2023, I want to help you tackle it. On January 9th, I'm starting a new course called the Cookbook Proposal Bootcamp. Over 8 weeks, we'll take your cookbook proposal from draft to done. You can learn more about the course and see if it's right for you at proposal.kristindonnelly.com. Use the code EverythingCookbooks, all one word, at checkout to receive $50 off the course.
It's the most wonderful time of the year. Or is it? Welcome to Everything Cookbooks, the podcast for writers, readers, and cooks. This is Kate Leahy, and I'm here with Andrea Nguyen, Molly Stevens, and Kristin Donnelly to record a quick episode dedicated to all things festive. Hey, everyone.
Hey, Kate.
Hey, Kate.
Hi, Kate.
So let's talk December. You love it or hate it? Is it a season that sparks joy, sparks fear? What's going through your heads?
It sparks. We're doing this again? Like, weren't we just here? Wasn't it just
soon.
December? Yeah, that's what it often sparks for me anymore. But
You have a daughter, you have a family. And so how is that for you all?
oh gosh, I'm sure it's very different in terms of like, my daughter loves like decorating and like traditions and all the things. And my husband and I are kind of lazy about that stuff, but she really keeps us in line. It's like, you're bringing out an elf and we're getting a tree this weekend and we're going downstairs to the basement to find out the decorations. So it is a little more intense, but food wise, I have a big extended family. We often gather on Christmas Eve. This year, I think I'm hosting. So yeah, 40, 50 people Christmas Eve.
Oh my God. How do you organize that?
Potluck, baby. It's like,
I was just thinking, good thing you wrote that book.
yeah, right.
Yeah.
I usually make 2 or 3 things. Maybe this year will be 1. I don't know. There's like always way too much food, very delicious food. People bring lots of stuff.
Do you organize ahead, Kristin? Like, so you say, all right, you bring some vegetables and you bring, so you don't end up with like 4 trays of mashed potatoes?
Yeah. I mean, there are things that people like to make almost every year or a genre. So I usually will just check in, and it's not formal like on a document, but I'll just text with people.
What do you do about dishware?
Good question.
Honestly, I use paper plates, and I bought lots of cheap forks from Home Goods years ago that we keep in a separate closet. It's like this balance of like ease and waste management. So I use like the compostable plates, hope they break down. And then the things like forks and cups, I have reusable stuff.
Okay, wine glasses, because I know you guys are into wine.
Yeah, we bought some inexpensive plastic reusable wine glasses. The thing is, they're not dishwasher safe, which is kind of a bummer. But you fill up the sink, you soap them out. It's not a big deal. Yeah, we just do a lot of dishes for, it's like you have the thing and then you do dishes for 2 days. Part of the fun, I guess.
Oh.
Yeah, that reminds me that my mom grew up in Mexico City, and they always did this tradition of posada. So from Christmas to Three Kings Day, you'd have parties in the neighborhood, and everybody had a turn hosting. My mom started doing something similar, and she got to a point where she just didn't want to have plastic cups. So now she and a friend have these glass cups that fit in dishwashers. They're short and stubby, so you wouldn't use it for fine wine tasting, but for parties like this, and they fit in the dishwasher, and they just share them. So if somebody's having a party, she gets the stemware, and they're like, like these short little goblets, and they're kind of cute and they're great. And so every year it's like, did you pick up the glassware from Kathy's house? So they figured it out. If I find what those glasses are, I'll send a link.
Do you oversee the wine selection, Kate, seeing as how you're into wine style?
Well, I do and I don't. I don't like to get fussy. Like at one point, like one of these holidays, somebody brought a bottle of electric reindeer. I'm not going to shame, but
Right.
So I'll say, okay, you gotta pick like a nice friendly red that a lot of people are going to like, and a nice friendly white that a lot of people are going to like. That's not that expensive, but there's always that person who comes to the party and they're looking at, maybe it's a Sauvignon Blanc and a Pinot Noir, and they have other ideas. And they're like, where's the Riesling? And I'm just like, are you serious? If you wanted Riesling, bring your own bottle.
I was looking for an unoaked Chardonnay.
No shame, just enjoyment.
Right. No snobbery. What about you, Andrea?
Well, we typically would gather at my parents' house for Christmas Eve because we're Catholic, and it just goes back to the thing of where we used to go to Mass on Christmas Eve. But last year, after my dad passed on the 30th of December. So the thing is that we have this tradition of having a day of or a celebration of remembrance. It's a death anniversary celebration in the Vietnamese tradition called Yo. And the first one is super important. So we're going to be celebrating that actually on the 31st of December. And I was like, Mom, what are we going to do? And she goes, I'm giving you a pass. You do not have to come to my house on Christmas Eve because I don't, it's like an 8-hour drive for us.
Right.
And so she's like, you can come a few days later and attend the Yo. And I would be very happy about that. You can help me organize. And she's having the Yo at a Asian all-you-can-eat buffet. Because she goes, then I don't have to manage RSVPs. I don't have to do the dishes. Anybody can come and I'll just pay and then they'll go away.
Genius.
All right, Mom, you're
That's
88
great.
years old. You got it figured out.
That's great.
So we're going to celebrate Christmas at home, just the two of us, and then go to my mom's house and cook her something special a few days before the all-you-can-eat buffet. And I'll, bring some loose clothing for that buffet eating experience.
That's such a beautiful
amazing.
tradition, though, of the 1 year later. I feel like it's really human.
It is.
Some of the loneliest part of grief is after the initial loss, as it goes on and it sinks in that it's a forever loss. And so to be able to come back a year later when, the pain might not be as sharp, but it's still very present. Mm-hmm. It is a beautiful, beautiful tradition.
Yeah, and there are different time periods within Vietnamese tradition. Sometimes I think it's like 49 days or something like that. My mom said, people have many different kinds of traditions. And she said, I don't want to do anything super close to after Dad passed away. And she goes, 1 year is enough by me. And then she said to me, well, depending on who you are, sometimes it's the kind of thing where you specify before you die that you want your death anniversary to be annually following the lunar calendar. So she goes, that's really hard to schedule. Every year it moves. And then she goes, and if you are the wife of the oldest son, then you have to do all the death anniversary for the entire family. And she goes, and that could be every month. There could be an event.
Right.
And she goes, and some people before they die say, I want it to always be vegetarian. And my mom's like, she loves vegetables. She goes, can you imagine that every month you have to do something? Like,
That was the straw that broke the camel's back, the vegetarian angle.
exactly. It wasn't enough that it's the lunar calendar each year, but it's the vegetarian part. So,
How about you, Molly?
I feel like since the pandemic and, the holidays were canceled, 2 years ago or something, and then last year it was like a small pod. So I feel like everything's kind of up for grabs. But much like you, Kristin, I grew up with a lot of cousins and we were 45 to 60 for Christmas Day, Christmas Eve. The other side of the family, might not quite as many, but I don't say formal, but people dressed up in their holiday finest and all of that. And the Christmas Day was, a huge roast and a turkey, and people brought things, and there's special glassware that's kept in a closet, and there's flatware that's only brought out for that. And I do miss that because it was wonderful to be around all those people growing up. And so some family still does parts of it, but it's just not quite what it was when we all were kids and all of our parents were intact. But
Yeah.
I have lots of memories of, my dad, he would show up with a prime rib, and I remember he would time it so that this was Christmas Day. He would time it so that it would come out of the oven when it was time for him to drive to Christmas dinner. And he'd take it out of the oven and put it in his trunk and wrap it in towels so that it would rest, because he knew it had to rest. But it would be in the roasting pan, and then he would put it in his trunk and drive to Christmas dinner. And he would also have made the Yorkshire pudding batter. It was always in some weird jug, and he would show up with that, and we'd put the roast onto the, it'd be time to start carving. He'd put it onto the carving board, and then we'd heat up the oven and put his roasting pan and drippings back in to make the Yorkshire pudding. And he just loved it. It was such a tradition for him to show up with this giant piece of beef, but we stopped doing that a while ago. But it's still a great memory of him. And,
Absolutely.
you stand there with an apron on and carving, it was wonderful.
Molly,
love
that's
that.
so beautiful.
Yeah.
That's like the seeds of All About Roasting.
Yeah, it really is.
Yeah.
And actually,
Seriously.
we've talked about head notes on this podcast, and that head note does say very much that this may be why I wrote this book, was because that notion of somebody, it's like a gift, this magnanimous, beautiful roast. So I have fond memories of that. Yeah.
Oh.
It's one of these stories where I'm like, I don't want to embarrass anybody. But when I had just gotten out of culinary school, I went to my aunt's house for Christmas, and she got a tenderloin, and it was frozen.
Oh, God.
Like whole tender, like, oh, like we're going to cook this. Can you help me? We defrosted it. I remember thinking like, okay, well, really nice piece of meat like this. Most important thing is thermometer. Like, I need to be able to check the internal temperature. And she was like, well, can't you just check it with your finger, like the way they do on TV? Like, I think she was thinking of steaks and like that macho, like you can tell a steak is done by pressing it, which there's some truth to for sure, but like not a whole tenderloin roast. So in the end, there was no thermometer. I think it turned out okay. I don't, but my memory was feeling like very stressed because they were like, oh, you're a culinary student. You should just know. And here I am like looking up online potential timing for this thing, because normally I would just like pop the thermometer in. And yeah, there are those like holiday, the like stressful holiday cooking, especially when you first start.
The tenderloin thing, Kristen, I have been in that situation where someone, again, my dad, he would show up with a tenderloin in a plastic bag and like, and that one he would leave to me to cook. But the pressure and the tension, the tenderloin, last one I have not cooked a tenderloin, beef tenderloin in, like they were $100 and that was 10 years ago. So the stress that people get under, it's like when someone brings out a bottle of wine that's way, I'm not going to say overvalued because maybe that's what it costs, but a super expensive bottle of wine, people get weird and it's not fun. And it's like, they're all like around me in the kitchen and they're staring at me like, don't screw it up. Don't screw it up. It's like, oh my God, everybody relax. Like,
I know, have a drink.
Right. Well, that's the other thing about the holidays. Cooking for the holidays can be stressful because usually you're not alone in the kitchen. And some of us like that space where we can think and we can just do and we can organize the kitchen. When you're cooking amongst other family members and friends, maybe they don't have the same system of organizing where the cutting board goes and, where the compost is and all that. My sister and her family would come down from Seattle and she'd have her little kids. And we got it in our heads that we had to make a bûche de Noël because that's super simple, like let's make a bûche de Noël and then we're going to bring it over to Kathy's house, the one who has all the glassware, and we're going to feast over there. So this one neighbor drops off at my parents' house this chunk of chocolate. And I thought, this is perfect. We can use this for the ganache. I didn't know that it was specific chocolate tempered to coat like the outside of C's candies or something. It was like,
couverture.
It was, and so it just
high butter fat.
It did not see. I wasted so much cream and just. I'm like, what is going on? Why is this like soup? Like, what is happening?
The stakes are higher,
the chocolate.
right?
It's the chocolate, right? And I think like if I had cooler, and then my sister's like, well, maybe it's this, and then it just every time we did it a couple years in a row. I don't know what we were thinking, but the bûche de Noël, and then we end up spending all this time on this dessert. That's not even enough to feed the 30 people at Christmas Eve dinner. So we gave bûche de Noël a break, but it was really fun to decorate. Making a little like the mushrooms and like that it was fun. That part.
I have
was
a
fun.
cousin who brings a croquembouche. The tree.
My gosh.
With
wow, that's awesome.
Already assembled.
She makes it at home and she brings it. So she's not, but it's pretty amazing. And the little cream puffs are all filled and it's got sponge sugar on it.
Wow.
It's amazing.
I remember hosting my first big Christmas Eve. I think I was reading an Ina Garten book. She said, like, when I have that many people, I just get a spiral cut ham. It's so easy. People like it. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to do that.
It's funny about the holidays. I think about when you're coming off of Thanksgiving where so many of the menus are set and traditional, although, Andrea did a great article on other foods at the table, which was so wonderful. But I understand people who have traditions like Christmas Eve, you eat this, Christmas Day, you eat this. But for me, it's more about, is it about the food or is it about the
The gathering.
Yeah.
It's about the gathering. It's definitely
it's
about
I
about
like
the
changing up
gathering.
the menu.
Yeah.
I do too. Yeah.
We made a lasagna one year. It was great.
That's fun.
You know, of
course.
Yeah, for me, I always feel like Christmas is when I get to kind of do a really special meal for my family. Just kind of share with them things that I found to be really spectacular, special to me during the past year. For a long time, getting back to the log, my mother was the log lady in the sense that she and my dad would bake a bunch of Yule logs and gift them to people all over our little town of San Clemente. And so we would make like 30 of them.
Wow.
Whoa.
And we would decorate them together. And my dad would do like the writing, you know, with the buttercream. And my sister would make like the mushrooms from meringue mushrooms and blah, blah, blah. We love that tradition of gifting things to people. And so I always think that for Christmas, food gifts that are simple. Now I just make fruitcake because like we like booze. And so, you know, you can make that in advance, right? And soak it up.
Yep.
But I remember one year we had a ton of rain when there was still a ton of rain in California. And I went out and foraged chanterelle mushrooms with a neighbor who had taught me where to pick and stuff. When I brought the chanterelles to my parents' house, my family looked at me like, are you about to kill us? They were so skeptical. I'm like, no, look, I've been eating these. And they're like, but not the one that could kill us. You know, and I think that year I also cooked a tenderloin. And so it was like this thing of where, you know, you try to treat people nicely, but then sometimes like it's just really so hard and stressful and the kitchen is so messy and everyone's running around and they're getting drunk and no one wants to behave.
And you just have to pour that electric reindeer into their glass, you know. You don't want to cellar that bottle.
Exactly.
Right.
Do any of you have any traditions like, you know, I know for a lot of Mexican families, it's like making tamales every year. My Ukrainian friend, every year they make various kinds of dumplings. So I actually don't have anything like that where it was like every year we make a huge batch of this one thing, but I'm always enamored with it.
Well, actually, my family has this friend named Mr. Cruz, Senor Cruz. He had inherited my dad's landscaping business after my dad retired. And so every year, Senor Cruz brings over his homemade tamales because it's something that my family, you know, we don't make tamales, but we love to eat his tamales. And he always brings them over on Christmas Eve and they're still warm because they just took them out of the steamer. It's just like so wonderful. Absolutely wonderful.
I love that.
I would love a tamale right now. I'm just like my mouth is
I
watering
know.
thinking
Same
of all
thing. It
these
just had this
foods.
image. I could smell the.
Yeah. I mean, I do something that a lot of, I mean, this isn't anything crazy. I always make cookies this time of year and I make them early in December, freeze them and then mail them to Patrick's family in New York City. So, you know, they don't need stuff from us, but something that they can't buy. It's, you know, something that's homemade. So I'll send them, like, usually I do like a trio of cookies and they're usually like durable cookies that can withstand shipping. And they, you know, something like a shortbread is always really, really good. And actually I use this book. It's a few years old. The book is called Holiday Cookies, Show-Stopping Recipes to Sweeten the Season. The author's name is Elizabeth der Nederlanden. She's Swedish. She is a food stylist in the Bay Area. And there's a cookie recipe in here that comes from a bakery in Oakland that I go to anytime I'm nearby because they have these almond cookies and she has the recipe that's like her version. And so I have to make those because they're sort of a family favorite. They take that almond paste, you grate it, you mix it with egg whites. Oh, they're so good.
I'm so getting that book. Oh my God, that sounds like my kind of cookie.
And there's a fruitcake shortbread that I really like too.
Ooh, that's fun.
Nice. Yep.
Yeah, Sarah Kiefer has a book that came out last year, Baking for the Holidays, which I do have, but I haven't made anything from it. But 100 Cookies was her book prior to that. And there's a chocolate sugar cookie that's like the easiest. It's so good because it's like chewy in the center, but a little crisp on the outside. And, you know, it has the extra sugar coating and they're just like deeply chocolatey.
The Joy of Cooking did a Christmas cookie book, just a really small little booklet. And I still use that for Christmas cookies, you know, and especially like just the really standard sugar cookie. I tend to do a chocolate pecan butter crunch. And I make batches of that and, you know, break it up and put it in bags. And that's kind of my gift. And I you know, maybe some candied orange peel and things like that. But it's fun to make, like you said, nobody needs anything but something a little bit sweet. My sister does these batches of granola, and she only makes it once a year. And she makes these huge batches of granola, and she started doing it just for her friends. And then for many years, she did it and would take it to a fundraiser for her local food bank. It's kind of this amazing. I mean, she could make a business out of it. Her granola is so good. And she has a little packaging for it, but she only does it around the holidays. And it's like we all, when we get some, we like put it in our freezer and like dole it out throughout the year because it's that good, sign of salty, little crunchy granola.
Yeah. I bake little ginger, like a triple ginger cookie. And actually I freeze the dough and then I take it to wherever I'm going and I bake them off there. I can bake them off in a toaster oven, I found out.
Nice. That's so smart.
That's amazing.
Because, certain cookies have that lifespan, that's the peak lifespan of like the first 15 minutes.
Actually, these chocolate sugar cookies I'm talking about, they're the kind where they're like even better the second day,
Ooh.
Yeah, there are a lot of like polenta, drip bread, sort of cornmeal based cookies that, maybe with a little candied fruit in there, a little lemon zest that really lasts a while. And fruitcake.
Right.
Fruitcake.
My mom will have like 4 or 5 different cookies that they'll do at a cookie exchange with her friends. And so she'll have these stacks of cookie tins because she's very, and I think this is important, she wants to separate all the different flavors. So you don't have that Christmas cookie that tastes like all the other Christmas cookies because they've been marinating in the same tin together. Like you got to separate, you got to enjoy. And so at the end of the holiday season, there's like, you kind of like, hit the tin and there's like 2 in there. You're like this huge. I'm like, okay, we can consolidate now. Now is the time to consolidate. Well, everyone, that was a really fun chat. I learned actually a lot about my fellow co-hosts that I didn't know about. That was just so delightful to get a peek into your holiday celebrations. And listeners out there, tag us in your holiday celebrations too. On that note, I'm going to wrap up our episode. But first, I want to hear from my co-authors on what they might be reading while we take this week off from podcasting and just chilling out. Molly, I'll start with you.
First, Kate, how do I get on your mailing list for your Christmas cookies? Just a little plug in there. But I recently read about a book that I'm very excited to dive into. It's called Savor, A Chef's Hunger for More by Fatima Ali. It sounds incredibly beautiful and moving. So I am going to check that one out and we'll find out more about it and put it in the show notes.
That sounds wonderful. Kristin, what about you?
I've had a book staring at me from my bookshelf for a few months now, ever since we talked to Lorraine from Hardy Grant. It's On the Himalayan Trail by Romy Gill. Like, I just love like mountainous environments. So I'm really excited to immerse myself in another mountain place.
It's such a beautiful book too. I love the painterly quality in the book. The design is just incredible.
The cover is stunning.
Mm-hmm. Andrea?
I am really into a book called Dining with the Dead.
Oh,
it's about the Mexican Feast for the Souls of the Day of the Dead. And I believe that it was a crowdfunded book. And it's just absolutely beautiful. Written by Mariana Munoz Ruiz and Ian McEnroe. It's available at, I think I bought my copy at Omnivore Books. So, you can't really get it just anywhere. Absolutely beautiful. And it's kind of like this escapism kind of book. Molly also got me reading George Saunders' book, Swim in a Pond in the Rain. It's getting me to think about how I read and how I write. That's the kind of thing that Molly gets me thinking about, too. It's one of her favorites.
Yeah, I've had Lincoln on the Bardo on my list to read for a long time. So maybe 2023 is when I finally read that book. That and along with A Gentleman in Moscow, which has also been on my shelf and fading, it's facing the sun. The spine is no longer sharp. And I'm just like, this means that I need to read this book or I have to give it to somebody who will read it. Because it's sad just having the book just staring at me. Read me. And I have not. So right on my bedroom table, I have How to Write a Mystery. It is actually from the Mystery Writers of America. And I love the first page. It just basically says the reason that there is this organization, which I come to think of as like the International Association of Culinary Professionals, but for mystery writers. The tagline is, crime doesn't pay, ... enough. So on that note, thank you everyone for tuning in to our little special holiday edition of Everything Cookbooks. We will be off next week, but we will be back bringing you more content about cooking, writing, and reading. So thanks everyone for hanging out.
Thanks so much, Kate.
Thank you for listening to Everything Cookbooks. If you have comments or questions, ping us on our website, everythingcookbooks.com. You can find more episodes of Everything Cookbooks at Amazon Music, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen. If you like what you hear, leave a review. Any books mentioned on the show can be found on our page at bookshop.org. Thanks to our talented editor, Abby Cirquitella. Happy holidays, and until next time, keep on writing, reading, and cooking.